Welcome back, everyone. Today, we continue our journey through Annu Pandey's powerful second book, Keeping Faith Alive, as we dive into Chapter 6, The Idealization Period. This is the phase where everything feels right, leaders appear inspiring, teachings feel transformative, and a strong emotional connection begins to form. But what's really happening beneath the surface? In this episode, we explore how idealization works psychologically, how unresolved trauma in both followers and leaders plays a role, and how tactics like love bombing and conditional acceptance can create deep attachment. We'll also unpack how fear and the promise of transformation can keep individuals committed even when warning signs appear. This is a crucial conversation about awareness, perception, and understanding the hidden dynamics behind influence and control. Let's begin. How are you, Anu?
I'm good. How are you? Was it bad?
I'm great. I'm happy to see you again. I actually missed you last week.
Same here.
Awesome. To get the ball rolling with you, Anu, what happens psychologically during the idealization period that causes followers to see leaders or teachings as perfect or unquestionable?
When someone enters a spiritual space, a group, a community, or a congregation, something very subtle but powerful happens. So there are basically four things that happen, which causes the idealization of the leaders or the belief system. These four things are attachment activation, cognitive narrowing, projection of unmet emotional needs, and neurochemical harm. We're going to dive deep into all of them one by one. So first, let's talk about the attachment activation. We all have a primary attachment style that we develop during our growth years. Attachment styles can be of four types: um, secure attachment style, insecure, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized attachment styles. So, if someone has, let's say, anxious attachment style, they grew up around caregivers who were emotionally absent or inconsistent or abusive, then at deeper level, we develop some emotional needs. And when we come and become a part of a spiritual community, our attachment system gets activated. When we get in relationship with in a relation with a leader, a community member, or just become part of the group. Without realizing, the leaders may start to feel like a safe person, a guiding figure, someone who knows, someone who won't abandon, someone who's not like the parents we have. It's like having a feeling that finally I have parents I needed, but I never had.
Hmm.
This is how attachment activation happens. What you needed, you're getting here. So your attachment needs suddenly got activated. Then there is cognitive narrowing. It's like your mind turning on the spotlight onto the good things, things that you want to see, things that make you happy, and slowly dimming out everything that does not fit the image. And it happens once the realization happens. Initially, there is very fast attachment, but over the time, once you start to realize you don't like it because it gives you discomfort. You initially idealize something, and you now know that it's not as ideal as nice as I thought it would be. So you feel this discomfort inside you, and because of that, the brain starts to filter the reality to keep you safe, to keep you feeling safe inside you, to reduce that discomfort. And so because of that, the positive traits get amplified. The down feel uncomfortable. The inconsistencies that you see in the group or leaders, they are minimized by your brain. And the intuition gets suppressed. Because if you don't do that, you feel very uncomfortable and very scared. So the red flags, they don't just disappear, but we stop seeing them consciously. Then the third thing that happens is rejection of unmet needs. The leaders become the psychological screen for the followers, and followers project their ideal self, their ideal parent, their idea of God, and their need for guidance. So, what they are seeing is not just the leader, they are seeing their own longings reflected back to them. You're seeing what you want to see. Yeah? And the fourth thing that happens is neurochemical highs. When we become a part of spiritual community, a spiritual group, these spiritual environments, these religious environments can be very powerful because there's so many nice things happen that gives us that make us feel very happy and very special, like singing, dancing, chanting, rituals, group synchronity, and emotional speeches and very intense emotional talks. So all of this activates dopamine, which is related to meaning and reward system. Oxytocin, which is related to trust and bonding. Endorphin, which makes us feel relieved and calm. So these activities cause the release of these neurochemicals in our brain, and it creates an emotional high, which we perceive as a spiritual high because we are in a spiritual environment and we think that it's spiritual high because of the spiritual things happening around me, but it's actually the emotional high happening because of the release of these neurochemicals inside your brain. And brain links these feelings to the leader. We think that I am feeling these emotional highs, these special feelings, the happiness, the bonding, the trust, the meaning, reward, release, because this leader has mercy on me, because they are guiding me, or because I became part of this group. So brain thinks that it's happening because I am being guided by the so and so leader, or I became part of this special group that has special things going on inside it. But the truth is that it's just your nervous system finally receiving something that it was deprived of all your life. It was deprived of it. It was unconsciously looking for it, and now suddenly it got everything from it. So you are feeling those emotional highs, which is the spiritual highs, and you link it with the leaders. And that's the reason why followers idealize leaders and belief systems.
Awesome. All right, there's a question here from Jitin Rishika. Dear Anu, how does one free themselves of toxic leaders?
See, it's not that toxic leaders, uh, in most of the places, they do not forcefully keep you. Do not forcefully hold you inside a group. It happens because you are trauma bonded. Whenever I come across someone who is continuing to associate with a toxic leader or a toxic community, they are doing so because they are trauma bonded to them. So you need to heal your trauma bonds. And for that, you need to heal your inner child. Inner child healing is what is recommended in all case of trauma bonds, whether it's an intimate relationship or it's a relationship with a toxic leader or toxic community. You need to find out what is inside me that's hurting, and
Hmm.
that's making me cling to something that's harmful. And for that, you need inner child healing. There are a lot of specialists in inner child healing who can do the inner child healing. There are several therapies that can be used for healing the inner child. Once your inner child gets healed, your inner child is not afraid anymore, and they whatever they are longing for, if when you are this current self is able to provide your inner child with that thing, they will not go out looking it in toxic people anymore. And that's how you get rid of the relationship with toxic leaders.
How does unresolved trauma in followers make them more likely to idolize spiritual leaders or become deeply attached to certain belief systems?
Unresolved trauma causes vulnerability. Trauma can cause hunger for something, and it shows up in different ways. First is attachment hook. If someone grew up with emotional neglect, unpredictability, constant criticism, and abandonment, then a confident, stable leader feels like emotional shelter. And there is a feeling like, finally, I have someone who is stable, who feels steady. Then there is also identity diffusion. Trauma can disrupt a person's sense of self. So they might struggle with self doubt, confusion about values that they hold, difficulty making decisions, and chronic guilt. So when a system or a community or a group or leader says, we will guide you, or we know the path, we know the truth, you can follow this path, we have the right way to do this. So it is relieving because we already are doubting ourselves, we have confusion about values, we are having decision paralysis, and we have guilt also. So now suddenly there is relief that someone else is heavily doing the work for me. So now I don't have the burden of figuring the life alone. They will be guiding me, and they will be helping me, and they are assuring me that this is the right and safe path. So suddenly you feel this relief. So identity diffusion makes you go for these promises, and when you follow these promises, you feel a sense of deep relief. So there is also trauma hunger. Every wound creates belonging. Like abandonment creates a desire for unconditional acceptance. Shame creates a desire for purity. Chaos creates desire for structure, and loneliness creates desire for belonging. And spiritual systems, they offer all of this at once, very nicely represented to you. So, which makes them feel, which makes you feel that this is all incredibly powerful. But this can be dangerous too, because you close your eyes and you blindly follow everything. You have the desire, you have the trauma hunger, and they are feeding it. So you might not take a lot of time thinking and transitioning from this stage to this stage. So it can be dangerous also. Then the fawn response. Many trauma survivors learn early that if I comply, I am safe. Especially people who have childhood trauma or who have been through domestic abuse, they have learned in that toxic, harmful environment that the authority figure, whether it's a parent, it's a husband, if I blindly comply everything, if I obey them blindly, I will be safe. They won't harm me. So when the authority appears, the authority in spiritual environment appears, they easily agree. They are very easily adjust. They suppress their doubts and they prioritize approval because that's how they have been conditioned during those years when they got traumatized. This might look like devotion on the outside, but it's actually nervous. But on the nervous system, if we look, it's actually survival. So this is how the unresolved trauma creates a bonding between the followers and leaders, and this is how it works.
Awesome. Can you explain the dynamic between a leader's trauma and a follower's trauma? How do these interact and reinforce each other in spiritual environments?
So this is one of the, I would say, the main reason why spiritual abuse happens and is sustained. Spiritual abuse is not like a one-way dynamics in which there is only a suppression and abuse. It's something that is being enabled on from the both sides. And
Mm.
the psychological wounds, the trauma that followers and leaders carry, they went together combined. It creates a dynamics that creates the spiritual abuse and sustains it. And this is something very important and very less talked about. And that's why I emphasize a lot about it. I even wrote a complete chapter about this book. So the followers would also understand why they allowed someone to abuse them. And leaders would also know what was actually happening and why they were abused. Just telling someone that you are abusive might bring a lot of shame and they might avoid thinking about it. But you tell them the psychological reason why they did what they did, what was the psychology behind their behavior, they might want to think about it. And they might also try to correct that behavior by doing the healing work on themselves. I think this is a very important topic and this should be definitely addressed. So first we will talk about the leaders' unmet needs. Not everyone who is in a leadership position is always completely perfectly healthy. Leaders might have trauma too, and some leaders might carry deep shame, fear of rejection, need for admiration, need for control, and fragile self-worth hidden under fake confidence. Why I'm saying this, you might think about the leaders that you know, and in spiritual communities, I'm saying. And you might recall someone who has one or more of these qualities. And you know what? When a leader has these qualities, When a leader has these problems, the deep shame, fear of rejection, need for regulation, need for control, and fragile self-worth, especially the last one, hidden under fake confidence, leadership might become a way of coping. And it can be very dangerous, very harmful for the community and for the people who are following this leader. The unmet emotional needs or the trauma response of the leader and follower, when we take them together, the leader's needs like need for authority, need for admiration, need for control, and the needs of followers, need for guidance, belonging, and validation. When they come together, they can together create a perfect psychological fit, like a lock and key dynamics. Followers seek direction, leaders provide certainty. Followers offer devotion, leaders receive power. So both feel fulfilled. I am giving what I want to give. What giving makes me feel good. What when I give this, you feel good, and you give what you're giving me, I will feel good. So they both are satisfying each other's psychological needs, but it could be doing a lot of damage to both of them, damaging the conscience of the leader and damaging the followers' spiritual life, their emotional health, psychological health, and their overall life. Also, when there is a toxic relationship, then trauma bonds also form, which I earlier stated. Over time, the emotional highs, the moments of closeness, the moments of approval that followers receive from leader gets mixed with moments of fear, moments of shame, and moments of pressure. Both of these things exist. The emotional highs when something nice happens, the moments of closeness that leaders purposely give, and the moments of approval that they purposely give. To who? The followers. They are not alone. They are alternated with fear, with shame, with pressure. That's how manipulation works. So when these positive things combine with these negative things, then the trauma bonds form. This because this creates intermittent reinforcement. Exactly what we see in gambling. When someone is gambling, sometimes they win, sometimes they do not win, but there is no predictability. They do not know when they can win, so they keep playing. This is what happens in toxic relationships. It's same in narcissistic relationships, toxic domestic abuse relationships. That the victim, the survivor, they keep struggling and working hard towards the relationship, hoping for that one moment of high, that one moment of closeness, any one small moment of approval. And they also go through a lot of fear, shame, pressure, coercion, abuse, because they are longing for that one good moment. So when that one good moment might come, but you don't know when that would come, so you keep tolerating all the negative things. It creates intermittent reinforcement. The same psychological pull that gamblers feel that makes them continue playing the game. So in relationships, this intermittent reinforcement can feel like connection, but it's actually dependency, and it's a toxic dependency known as trauma bonding. So this is how the psychology of leaders and followers who have trauma interact together to create toxic, harmful relationship that could be harming both.
What role do tactics like love bombing, conditional acceptance, and institutional fear play in maintaining control during this idealization phase?
So once the idealization is established, the control doesn't always look aggressive. It looks spiritual because somehow followers are also enabling it and leaders are also working hard towards the manipulation. So it starts with love bombing. There is instant acceptance, there is instant validation. You are special, you are fortunate, and we are a special group, and now you become a part of this. So all of this creates rapid emotional attachment. Now, the acceptance, although it was instant, but it is conditional. But it does not, followers are not able to understand that this instant acceptance and the instant validation that they got in the initial stages of that relation with the leaders and the community, it could be conditional. Once you join the community, when you fully commit, when you get emotionally attached, that's when you notice that when you follow, you are accepted. When you question, you are subtly rejected. Now, this trains compliance because now you see that love has become tied to the obedience. and you want to be continued to be loved like you did in the initial stages. That the love that was
Mm.
showed to you, the love moment that was showed to you in the initial stages, that was the reason why you came, why you joined, why you stayed. And now you are noticing that, oh, it was conditional. I will get it only if I quietly follow, do not question. So it trains the followers to become compliant, and the love becomes tied to obedience. Now, there is also institutional fear, which is there in the followers because of the messages like outside world is lost, leaving leads to downfall, doubt is ego, you're not trying hard if you're sad. If you have questions in your mind, you lack faith, you're failing morally if you're thinking of leaving or you are finding faults. So fear becomes an invisible boundary. Fear is there and it creates an invisible boundary. You're already afraid of the outside world because they're told that it's dangerous, it will put you on the wrong path, and it will be harmful for your spiritual life. And inside also, you are afraid because you can't question, and you cannot have doubts, you cannot say no to anything. You have to, it doesn't matter what your gut feeling says about a particular thing. It doesn't matter how you're feeling on the inside, but you just have to be a yes man. Otherwise, you wouldn't be emotionally safe. You will be ostracized inside the community also. So, an invisible boundary is created with the use of fear. Also, there is a lot of gaslighting of doubt. If a follower feels any kind of discomfort, it is reframed as lack of faith, impurity, ego resistance. So instead of questioning the system, the followers start to question themselves. And slowly they lose trust in their own voice.
Awesome. Lastly, why does the promise or illusion of personal transformation keep people committed even when they begin to notice red flags or inconsistencies?
So there is a concept called sunk cost fallacy. If you have heard about that terms, it means that it's a phenomenon. It's a phenomena whereby a person is reluctant to abandon a strategy or course of
Okay.
action because they have heavily invested in it, even if then it's clear that abandonment would be more beneficial. So in spiritual communities, when followers realize that this is wrong, this is not what they promised in the beginning, and they are not as spiritual or as morally elevated as they pretended, as I thought, as other followers or leaders told me. And now I have become a part of this community, but I have invested so much emotional investment in the leader, in the community, in the fellow members. I've invested so much time, and now everybody on the outside knows that I am part of this community. I have already started to preach for this community. I have already shared so much, had debates and discussions with people trying to prove that my community is right. Now I have done so much investment privately, personally, and publicly that now my mind resists the reality. It does happens in a lot of cases, like someone has done a lot of financial investment in something in a business, and they know that this business is only causing harm and it's not right for me, and it might cause further loss. But since I have already invested so much, I don't want to lose it. It's a very common thing. This sunk cost fallacy is something that happens so frequently in domestic abuse cases. Women don't leave their abusers because they have been with this person for so long. They have their children, they share children together, they have built a house together. Although if you continue to stay with this person, you might die one day, you might get killed, you might commit suicide. Your children, they might get emotional health or mental health issues. You know that this relationship could cause a lot of damage in future, but still you stay because your mind fools you into thinking that you have invested so much. So let's resist the reality and let's try to, work towards it. Also, there is hope attachment. People keep thinking that maybe I will transform, maybe I'm just not trying hard enough, and that is what is told repeatedly in a toxic community. If you think try to talk about problems, try to discuss problems, the first thing that you're told is that you are not trying enough. The problem is on your side. Look at everyone is happy, but they are actually going through the same thing. They want to talk about it, but they fear being labeled as not being serious enough, not working hard enough, not trying hard enough, not being loyal to the community like that, not being serious, and going through moral failing and all that. Everyone is going through the same thing, but everyone is keeping quiet because they think that if I say something, I will deliver. So when one person stands up and tries to talk, they are told that you are not trying hard enough. And over the time, this voice gets internalized as critical thoughts. So there's hope and there's also fear. And then when they get mixed, you think that maybe I'm just not trying hard enough. So hope keeps them invested. Then the intermittent reinforcement that I talked earlier. There is occasional praises, occasional emotional highs, occasional nice spiritual experiences. So the brain, this keeps the brain hooked towards the process. Let's keep trying. Maybe something nice will happen. Maybe these moments of emotional high will come more frequently now, or they will be more intense with time, or they will last longer than before if I work more hard. Because you are constantly told that problem is at your end. So try harder, and you will get what you were promised in this race. They promised it, but now it becomes your responsibility. Then identity fusion that I also expressed. The system becomes the identity, community, purpose, belonging. When you become member of a toxic community, then you lose your identity. You just become a unit of that community. You're not an individual person. You're just a member of them. Now, your likes, your dislikes, your purpose, your values, your priorities, everything becomes group's priority, group's like. What the group together likes is what you like now. What the group together values becomes your values now. You do not have any personal values or any personal priorities or any personal identity or any purpose in your life. The only purpose becomes being a good, committed member of the group and growing with the group, expanding the group, bringing more people in the group, and spreading the message. Now, when you think of attaching yourself from it, it feels like losing everything. I actually quite know a few people who lost touch with their community and they are so lost. They feel as if they are dead. They are just shell of who they are because they don't even recall what they actually were, what they actually liked, what they wanted to be, what they wanted to do, what they valued, what they liked or disliked, what their purpose in life was before becoming part of the community. They don't recall anything, and it actually requires a lot of healing work to go back and connect to your original self. I have dedicated a few exercises in my book that can help people to once again get connected to themselves after leaving their toxic community. And the most important thing is shame and guilt. There's a constant shaming and guilt tripping done, and that's the main part of the manipulation that is written toxic community. So leaving, if you think of leaving, if you talk about leaving, it is always reframed as betrayal, failure, spiritual weakness, moral failure, and the emotional weight. So the emotional weight keeps people stuck because nobody wants to feel this weight of shame and guilt. So they think, oh, it's better instead of going through all that emotional pain. Why not just keep trying? I actually know quite a few people who have all the symptoms of spiritual abuse, who are going through everything that I just described in my previous podcasts also. But all these weights, this sunk cost fallacy, this hope attachment, this intermittent reinforcement, this identity fusion, and shame and guilt is what is keeping them hooked. They don't want to go through all that pain that they or anyone would definitely have to go if they want to do.
All I gotta say is thanks so much for your time. I knew, and I'll take you for the next one.
Okay, bye bye.